program. And many already have that, some don't. So this is just saying it needs to happen and it costs to have a good system. So.
And you're going to want to put some kind of a letter with this anyway when you put it up, with some kind of instructions. What is the purpose of this? And you could explain it in there. You could leave the line blank and say, we estimate that it would be about $10 per call, but in some areas it may be more, some areas it may be less, and explain that in your explanation.
We could say $10, $2016, so that you're right. 10 years from now, $2016 may be worth $3.
Yep.
Right.
You hope it's that much.
Yeah. Okay. So then, Dr. Manifold suggests that we send this to EMS committee. Who else?
I was actually just thinking internally in the medical directors committee.
Internally in the medical. Okay.
For, particularly as a first run, and then if we want to push it out to others, I have no problem with that.
Can I ask a process question?
Yes, sir.
So if this committee were at some point in the future to entertain a motion to take the next version of this document and approve it to be, doesn't it then have to go to GTAC or GTAC then? So other committees, it would probably behoove us to get the other committee's support on this before it goes to GTAC, right? Okay.
So that was my intent of, if we can review and make suggestions and get them to Dr. Purse before the next meeting, and I will get this on the agenda of the EMS and who else?
If I could ask a question for clarification purposes. As we're discussing now, this is going to constitute a template, correct? Yeah. So since it's not legislation and since it's not necessarily going to impact, I don't think, other committees, this is something people can pull down, take a look at, and use as a starting point for their own personal contracts. I would hope that this shouldn't be too much of an impact in terms of other committees. Secondly, the issue of the $10 fee, which is actually a very good idea. I could see some other uses for that as well, remediating folks who have issues and need educational opportunities, et cetera. The good thing about that is those contracts should be renegotiated every year or two or so, and since it's a template, that gives people the opportunity to put in whatever dollar amount that turns out to be, and then ultimately that has to be decided upon between the provider agency and the medical director, I would think. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Thank you.
Bobby. Dr. Greenberg. It doesn't work sometimes. Yeah.
No, that's okay. I bet they can hear me. So to answer Dr. Purse's question about process, and I'll make sure.
Those on TV probably will not hear you.
Sorry, killing me.
So to answer Dr. Purse's question about process, this is on the council's agenda for tomorrow. So tomorrow at council, Dr. Beeson will present this, at which time that's when the council would decide what other committees should chime in on this. So, I mean, personally, this is an EMS issue, obviously, so it needs to go to that committee. So since it's on the agenda for tomorrow, when Dr. Beeson presents it, then we can move it forward, and at the same time, you can work on massaging the contract. And this doesn't have to be the same as the employment contract, by the way. This is a different agreement, if you will.
So yes, so I can take this forward tomorrow to council. We can massage it and then take it to council. I can get it put on the agenda next time. What would this committee suggest?
Okay.
Can it go to council plus be massaged?
If that's what you would like.
It's already on council agenda for tomorrow.
I know it's been on council agenda a while. I'm just saying if they want to massage it first, we could put it on there.
I can't see that there will be much massaging.
Okay.
It looks like a pretty well-prepared document as it is.
A little bit on the lower back.
Okay.
There you go.
So what would this committee like?
I think probably send it to the council and do it asking for input. So instead of, while it might have been optimal just to have our input first before it went, it's going there anyway, so I would just say go and ask everyone for their input and have that come back, and we'll massage whatever they recommend.
Is that a motion?
Yes, that was a motion.
I second that motion.
All right, first. Comments, Kate?
Yeah, just one other comment. Just because we know there are gaps between 197 and 157, and while this is great as a template, and I think it's very well written, my question is, should we be putting out some kind of position statement from our group that a template like this should be used to fill that gap, or is there something that we need to be recommending because I'm just concerned, well, it may be available and it's a great tool. Is it going to be used? And how can we ensure that or encourage that it be used?
Very good point. Any other comments, public comment? All right. All those in favor? Aye. Aye. Any opposed? Good. So I do agree with Kate. I think that once we formalize this, there probably need to be some letter or some position or something that goes with this to talk about why this is important. And it probably needs to delve even more into what is included in a good quality assurance program and what that money is, why that money is so important. Because I still think that's an issue as Bobby and I have gone around and done some of the administrator record courses, and I know as compliance goes around to agencies, that's still a deficiency in many systems, is having a good quality assurance program that it goes back into the continuing education program and not just the maintenance and certification. So, okay.
Has anybody ever done a study to see the approximate cost per run for doing any of this kind of work in any state ever?
I'm not aware of any.
I'm thinking about.
I'm thinking they may come back with this needs to be 875 or maybe 772. You know.
I would recommend the paper that's forwarded to the GTAC Council tomorrow be without a monetary amount associated with it, because I'm sure already the ire and hair is standing up on the back of the necks of fire chiefs and EMS agency directors to think about this concept. We all agree that we think it's a reasonable process, but we haven't socialized this nearly well enough for that, even for a draft document to be placed out there. And so I would just put that as the idea and a discussion point.
I would, I guess I'm okay just putting an X in the spot, but I think we have to really stress the concept that there has to be a financial commitment. Keeping in mind, this is a recommendation at best, but I think that the idea of actually putting down a number in the contract, and right now I agree, Dr. Manifold, a variable is fine, but I really think that we need to be fairly strong that it does cost money to do a QM project. If you're going to take care of patients, if you're going to engage in medicine, you have to engage in medicine like the rest of the world does.
But I'd say it's a good thing that the hair is standing back on the back of their necks.
He said hair is good.
So say you.
So see you.
I know, I'm getting out of my numbers here. Okay. So, public comments. I know there's usually reports from various other groups. Anybody would like to tell us anything? Starla, you coming to the mic? Oh, no, sorry. You're hiding in the back. Good to see you here.
So somebody that's with like an AMR type organization or a nationwide organization could maybe get us some data that would say what is kind of the national average so that we can make sure we're in ballpark range. I mean, we know that 90% of the people that have this kind of contract choose this number amount because, I mean, we're not at all scientific here. I mean, it's not like us to be so gray.
I think the hard thing, Dr. Moore, about that is in many large organizations that have a good program, it's already in the budget. So, I mean, without going and saying, okay, what's the line item for those FTEs that are doing this and how much you're spending on educational programs and other things that come out of that, that'd be a difficult thing. I don't know.
So I think one thing we could do, I mean, this is just, as you were saying that, the thought occurred to me that this isn't incredibly scientific, but you could do like a SurveyMonkey poll that actually has a draft spreadsheet with blanks in that say, here are the things that are typically included in a QM project, including the FTEs. Can you tell us how many of these you're using and roughly what your budget is? Completely voluntary, but just do a survey of what is it that you're spending on QM now. I think it would be an interesting thing to find out.
I think you should put that together, Jeff. We would support you 100%.
You know, as I open my mouth as I'm talking, I'm looking over and Jeff is grinning and I'm thinking, uh-oh. Yes, I'll be happy to do that.
Good. Well, I mean, if you do, we can all disseminate it and get it out to multiple
Is this going to
groups.
go beyond Texas?
Sure. Cost of electrons.
I mean, if you
is cheap.
send it into Texas, we would be half of the people who respond, because the other half
We
we're
are
still trying to
Texas, after all.
find. That's the problem, it's challenging.
It's a cost of QI, QA process, basically.
Yeah. And the idea is to try to give us a value based on something for Dr. Purse's variable.
You mentioned education, but this is beyond, I mean, this is separate from education, right?
Well, no, I don't think that you can separate QM and education. So I think that in most of our systems, what drives our education, the content of our education, is the QM system. So I
Well, what
think
you meant to
have
say, what
compare them.
should be driving our education.
Right.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
In addition to some anaphylaxis
But would
training.
that number have changed from Dr. Purse if he had thought it was also covering education?
Well, it kind of goes to your system and how much money you need.
Yeah.
That's why it needs to be variable. So, I mean, like I said, this is just a back of the napkin sort of thing that I did where I came with this $10. And it occurred to me, we charge thousands of dollars, we collect hundreds of dollars, and for me to get $10 for each one seemed like it shouldn't be too terribly painful. But if I were to really be using this for my system, I'm going to need to go in and figure out what I really anticipate spending next year, and then divide that by the number of anticipated runs next year and come up with a value, maybe 11, maybe 12, maybe 8. But, if we're going to be renewing this on a X number of years basis, your needs are going to fluctuate. In some years, you're going to anticipate, heaven forbid, any one of our systems should come upon a problem that's
Yeah.
going to take a couple years to fix, and you may need some more money for a couple years, right? So, but I figured 10 was in the ballpark. And as we move forward, and while I completely agree that this number hasn't been vetted, I found it to be reasonable for my system. I could probably work with that, and yet it also took a little bit of sticker, if it's complete, my one thought was if I just leave it blank, people could get, sticker shock because they could imagine any size number being in there. And I thought, well, if you put in $10, then it shouldn't get anybody too afraid, yet it's really going to translate into something I could use. But I don't know if there's a right or wrong way to do it. We want to send it forward with no dollars, that's fine. Just
I know some organizations that have contracts with the medical director where they put that they will support, X amount of hours per quarter per year of education with the medical director. So that at least tells the medical director, I'm not getting money, but you're going to pay your people
Yeah.
to come and have time, which drives the CM program, so QM.
I suspect, since we're generating a template, that in the end, it's just going to be a blank. But having that $10 in there as a suggestion as we begin to bat it around and discuss it, I think would stimulate discussion. I think that's a good starting point. And I'd submit I would just leave it there, just if for no other reason than to get the discussion really going, that this is a significant issue that really needs to be addressed in a serious manner.
Should we do the Survey Monkey before we send it out?
Just same time.
tomorrow, right?
Send it out with a blank and then do the Survey Monkey and say, if you're wondering,
Well,
nationwide
when-
survey shows.
When I give this to the council tomorrow, I will explain them what we're doing to try to find more information about
Okay.
the financial aspects
good.
or others.
I just think if we put the survey out, I think this is really important, and not just for the state of Texas necessarily, but on a larger scale, and even to look at potentially putting this out in the literature would be a really important goal, so that people across the country can understand what quality improvement is or should be and how it relates to EMS systems.
The nice thing, I think you're
you have
right.
a helper
nothing is-
here.
Yeah, I got that. So I think the nice thing is there is a gap in the literature there, and this data, I think, would be of interest and shouldn't be hard to publish.
You have a helper.
I see Dr. Manifold down there just
No, I
dying
think
to
the challenge is
volunteer.
going to be having the agency directors come up with a monetary amount to be placed in there. And I think without socialization and the input, to have an agency expect that they're going to put a dollar amount in a contract with the medical director is something that we have not vetted well yet. It's not that it doesn't need to be vetted, and I am all for this, for stimulating that conversation and things, but, because if I'm an EMS medical director, or an agency director rather, I'm going to go back and look at my FTEs and figure out what my costs are there, what I think there are. I'm not going to put in something that's going to be a probably add-on value for what my line item budget is already, but at least it's we're trying to address it as a line item budget component so that people look at, there's a commitment to quality assurance with the financial piece associated.
Can I just add something? So we do have to be a little bit careful here, because I would submit that I think that most EMS provider agencies in America today are spending way too little on QA. Ergo, why I've got a problem here, right? So, and I think that Dr. Manifold's right. A lot of places are going to go back and they're going to say, well, what am I spending now? And they're going to say, well, that's good enough. And if we settle for that, we have gained no ground. So to some degree, to put a value in here, having no idea where this fits against everything else, but to put a value in there, or maybe we need to get some, do a little bit of homework and get an idea of what's being spent now before we can put a value in there. This could wind up being a whole lot of work and gaining no ground. If we wind up going by what is the average, I think that really what we need is we need to know what is appropriate. What's an appropriate amount of money to be spent on QA? And that's what should be put in there, regardless of what we're currently spending.
Is it a monetary thing or more of a content thing? I mean, do you list the bullet points of what should be included in the process and whatever that costs?
So the Texan in me doesn't want you telling me how to do my QA. On the other hand, there may be some merit to what you're saying to say, to at least include these items, something like that.
I think I agree with everything everyone's saying. I think, when it comes to a template, I agree with Dr. Manifold that it might be reasonable to leave that blank because of budgetary issues. However, I do think that if we move forward with a position statement or a white paper, that would be a good place to talk about what content should be included in quality improvement and potentially how much might be an appropriate amount to then facilitate the template. That's my thought.
Any other discussions, comments? Anybody? Dr. Joe?
Dr. Beeson, just looking at the committee up there, I know that some of you have big services, small services. It might benefit for you all to just look at your own services and try to figure out and then compare that note amongst yourselves. So at least you have a starting point. So when people start questioning where does that $10 come from, you can at least say that we looked at it from large services, from smaller services, and this is kind of the balance where we're at. And it just give you an answer instead of I just picked it out of the sky, because that comes back and bites you.
So I'm sure Dr. Jarvis in his questionnaire will ask about the size of the service.
Yeah, the demographics would be important.
Runs,
Yeah.
transports. And once again, we'll be half of the people who respond to it, so at least our information will be in there.
Sure.
For sure.
Correct,
And
Bob?
I'll develop an initial template of questions and distribute it to get your input.
Okay. Other agenda items for next time. So I have the mental health transports. We'll find out some more and hopefully get some feedback on this meeting in May that they were talking about. We'll bring this letter of agreement back. Any other items?
The paramedic task force.
Community paramedic task force.
The community paramedic task
Okay.
force.
Dr. Malone, she's somewhere. She's in another country. I forget where she's from.
Chile, Argentina, South
Argentina,
America,
somewhere, yeah.
swimming with penguins or something.
Yeah, swimming with penguins. Yeah.
I think.
Yeah, no kidding.
She stays away from mosquitoes.
Yeah,
And the trauma registry we didn't hear.
trauma registry.
Mr. Chair, there's the establishment of the freestanding emergency center task force, and it may be nice to have a report from them at our meeting.
Okay, I will get that. I know that meeting's tomorrow. I'm planning on attending that, so I'll have some information about that.
Right after the GTAC meeting.
Right after GTAC.
I know a lot about Zika virus here.
Oh, yeah, Dr. Purse, please tell us
Seriously?
right now. That's a really good thing. It's a lot of topics, and you're the expert.
Well, I don't know about but I hang out with some of them. So the Zika virus. It's got a lot of news. Brief history, first identified in 1947 in the Zika forest of Uganda. Zika is, whatever their language they speak there, for dense. It's a very dense forest. It's so dense that humans rarely ventured into it because the brush was so thick it was hard to get into. First human case in 1954. It then spread slowly eastward around the globe, basically mostly unrecognized and unnoticed because the illness it causes is so mild, and the places that it traveled to were so sparsely populated. French Polynesia, several years ago, they had the first outbreak where they had several hundred cases. And again, the illness is pretty mild for most folks, but they noticed a significant increase in the number of cases of patients, of individuals with Guillain-Barré. There was no increase noted in microcephaly, but then again, the reporting process is there so rudimentary that nobody really knows. And the number of cases, measuring only in the hundreds, it would be really hard to notice an uptick in microcephaly if it even occurred. Then in May of last year, barely 9 months ago, it made its way to Brazil. Western Hemisphere basically has no herd immunity to Zika virus or any related viruses that could have given some partial immunity to it. So that's why it has spread as rapidly as it has throughout Brazil and Central America. The term that the World Health Organization uses is exploded, and it really has. So now there are, I think at last count, there are like 27 countries in just a few months where the virus has been found. To give you an idea of the scope of the impact in microcephaly, there's a state in Brazil that has a population of about 9 million people. There are several 100,000 births there per year. The number of microcephaly cases that they had was averaging about 9 per year, so it's about 1 per million population. And in 1 year, that 9 went to 673 cases of microcephaly. So a huge increase. Now, there's not been a direct link. Some of you may have seen that yesterday the CDC reported that they did tissue sampling on 4 fetuses. 2 were spontaneous abortions. They didn't live till term. They tested those tissues and others, 2 other fetuses, or 2 other infants that were born but only lived a few hours, and all 4 of them were found to have Zika virus in them. Now, that still does not make a direct correlation, but I will warn you, the media is making it sound as if it is. But from the real scientific standpoint, 4 cases does not make causation. But nevertheless, that's what's being reported. We have cases here in the United States. All of them are imported with the exception of 1, which appears to be an intimate contact transmission in the Dallas area. There are 3 other cases that are reported in literature of apparent intimate contact transmission going back just a couple of years. This is all very new. There's so much that we don't know about this virus, and we're going to be learning about it. One of the interesting things is that I can't remember the countries, but it's certainly in Brazil, there's a lot, they've seen a big uptick in microcephaly, not so much in the Guillain-Barré, and there's a different South American country, which I wish I could tell you. I want to say it's Colombia, but I don't know for sure, where there hasn't been very much microcephaly, but there's been a big increase in the Guillain-Barré, clearly in the opposite direction. Nobody has any clue why that would be. So there's an awful lot that we don't know about the virus. As it comes to the United States, I think our thoughts are, one, we need to, and this is going to sound a little odd, but the first thing we need to do is try and protect our mosquito population from the virus. Now, at the same time, if we can annihilate the Aedes aegypti mosquito population, that would be helpful, and there are ways to do that. A couple of interesting things about the Aedes aegypti mosquito. Number one is it's a daytime biter, which you've heard. The other thing is that, which you may not have heard, is it is almost exclusively a feeder of human blood. So it's going to be found very close to where you live. The mosquito doesn't generally travel more than about 1 household away from its home. So the mosquitoes that you get bit with, the Aedes aegypti mosquito that you get bit by in your home are living there at your home. Their favorite place to live is inside your house. That's their number 1 favorite place to live. You have more mosquitoes in your house than you probably know that you do. Their next favorite place to live is immediately outside the doors and windows of your home so that they can get to you, because that's who they feed off of, is you. You're not going to find them in the forests. You're not going to find them in empty pastures, places where aerial spraying may be effective. They're not there. They're in and around your home. So the first thing to do is to try and eliminate places for them to breed. Of course, we've all heard that they can breed in as little bit as a bottle cap, and that's true. So we need to really police our homes. One of the favorite forgotten places of standing water is your rain gutters. So we need to clean up the rain gutters and make sure that they're flowing freely so that there isn't standing water in your rain gutters. The next thing we have to do is eliminate their food source, which is us. So the long sleeves, long pants, wear lots of DEET, do everything you can to not get bit. We need to be worried about the people in those we need to worry about the neighborhoods and the people that live in the neighborhoods where there's increased opportunity for the mosquitoes to breed. And those are going to be your low-income neighborhoods because there's a lot more, trash, there are empty lots, there are empty homes, there are places where there's going to be a lot of standing water that people won't be policing on a regular basis to be breeding sites. The lower-income homes also tend to not have air conditioning, which means they rely on screen doors and screen windows, which are often in disrepair. And here's the thing to keep in mind. The human being is the reservoir of the virus. The mosquito is simply the vector. It's not the reservoir. We're the reservoir. So an individual gets infected with the virus, they then become viremic. They may or may not be symptomatic. And then as they get more and more mosquitoes, every one of those mosquitoes then becomes the vector to transmit it to yet somebody else. And that's really how it spreads. So basically the line of attack first is going to be to eliminate their breeding sites, and secondarily is going to be to eliminate their food source, us. At some point, we're going to lose that battle. We're talking about mosquitoes and viruses. So at some point, we're going to lose that battle, and it's going to get here and get a foothold, at which point we then need to shift our attention really to protecting women of childbearing age. And all of us are at risk for the Guillain-Barré. There's nobody who's at greater, there's no disparity there. We'll see what kind of a personality it has when it comes to the states, whether it's going to be causing more microcephaly or causing more Guillain-Barré, we don't know yet. But I guess that's my quick and dirty report on Zika virus. Oh, the president yesterday, the day before, asked Congress to appropriate several $1 million towards this cause, and the World Health Organization is ramping up and declaring it a global emergency.
Dr. Peirce, so first, thank you very much for that. That was very informative. With the exception of those, I think, 7, 8 cases that you talked about, have there been any other cases of human-to-human spread without mosquitoes?
So we don't know. So the things we worry about are saliva, semen, breast milk, and blood. So expect changes to occur at the blood bank. So they haven't actually said yet that if you've traveled from those countries, don't donate blood. They can't screen the blood yet for the Zika virus. So fully expect that the blood banks are going to come out with something very soon where they may not be taking blood from folks who have just traveled from an endemic area. With the semen, we don't know. With most folks, it appears that you get ill, you get better generally within about 14 to 20 days, and then you shouldn't be viremic anymore. But we don't know about breast milk. We don't know about whether it's transmissible through saliva. It appears to be transmissible through semen. All of the sexually transmitted cases that I'm aware of were all male to female transmissions. We just don't know yet.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Peirce. You made me happy.
Well, the good news about this is we know the media will really treat this with high scientific rigor, much like they did Ebola.
Sure.
Or the pig flu. I saw some of the registry folks come in. The fine doctors. Can you update us?
Dr. Beeson, why it's coming up, I just wanted 2 announcements. Remember that the medical command course that you're required to take will expire in August or September 1st, somewhere around there. And then it'll cost you $400. So if you know somebody hasn't taken it yet, they better take it, because then it's going to cost you, because we are not going after a 3rd year of this. And then just a little pitch for the National Rural EMS Conference. It's in San Antonio, April 21st and 22nd. It's for rural EMS and critical access hospitals. It's a day and a half long, and there's some handouts out front here.
Thanks.
Hi, I'm Dan Duff from Department of State Health Services. Just giving an update on the trauma registries, or the EMS and trauma registries. We had a really productive 2015. 3 million records were submitted to us in that year. We also had our stakeholder requests go up, so these are how we help our stakeholders when they have questions to us. It went up from 400 in 2014 to 1,800 in 2016, or 2015. We continually update, do stakeholder webinars, so if stakeholders need more information from our system, we do 2 a month, and they're aimed at different groups, and we are going to be looking at adding JPs and MEs for a couple of other registries that we have going to, so that's a big part of our process moving forward. And I think that, and for the data set, for those who are looking for data requests for us for research purposes, we closed the 2015 on August 1st of 2016, so this year. We're also implementing new processes. If someone would like data from us, you can ask for a public use data file. This is a line level data set with the PHI stripped, and all you have to do is fill out a limited use data agreement, and you can use this for your research purposes. And that's mostly it. And does anyone have any questions about anything
So
else?
the registry has all EMS data?
Correct.
Just hospital data from trauma?
Trauma, it's, all hospital data is captured within the hospital discharge data set. We have a subset of that for trauma.
So are there other, so I know there's lots of talks of stroke and cardiac arrest or STEMI or whatever. Are those other databases that exist somewhere else but not within you, or those don't even exist?
I don't know of any that exist offhand, but that's just from my knowledge. I know that we have some information on how EMS runs or the procedure codes and things of those nature are, and I think there's, we've given a list to the STEMI team of the variables on our data set, and I think we're going to prepare them a limited use data file so they can have that data to analyze on their own.
Okay. And you are able to merge the hospital trauma record with the EMS report if they exist, or are they separate?
We do that. I think it's possible to do that. We do it with other data sets, and that, I think that's possible.
Okay. Okay. Thank you, sir. Any questions?
So when you say you think that's possible, is that something we're pursuing or an idea? Or something that we need to push?
Let me get back to you on that, on the
He's
correct
walking
answer.
behind
I
you,
don't
don't
want
worry.
to.
He's
I don't
coming
want
up
to say
behind
something and not to take it back.
Understand.
I'm doing too much of that, so I gotta.
Thanks for your help. Thanks.
Rob Klein, project manager for the registry system. At this time, we are putting together an algorithm to link our EMS run data with our hospital trauma data. So if we can match up a patient name and some other heuristic information, we will link those two records together, so we'll have an end-to-end type of scenarios which we can take a look at from a data point of view. So we're working through that. That is part of our work from last year. We're going to extend that into this year also. So we're working on that. The other key things that we're looking at, it won't happen in 2016, but more in 2017. We're also then looking at the CHS, Center of Health Statistics data for those trauma patients that are disposition data, and trying to link that piece also. So we have a full case. We're trying to link the case from when the EMS picks them up right through to the outcome.
So for my information, just so I know every committee talks about data and registries, and there's state registries and RAC registries and all kinds of stuff. So if the trauma and EMS registry went to something other than just trauma and EMS, if it went to, let's say, cardiac,
right,
or PEDS, Dr. Rimmick's here. If I don't say PEDS, you'll hit me. But anyway, so pick another group.
Sure.
Is the reason that doesn't exist because it's a legislature, some rule that charges what you do, or is it a funding issue, or both?
It is legislated.
Okay.
So on the stroke side, which we've taken a look at and working with the stroke committee, we do collect every EMS run. So if there are stroke data, we have found that we're collecting every data from the EMS side. Our biggest gap now is from the hospital side. We're not mandated to collect those stroke and cardiac issues on that side. That would have to come from the legislated, and it therefore probably needs some type of funding also.
Okay. Hence why everybody's starting their own registry. That becomes a challenge because now we're fragmented.
It is fragmented, and we're collecting one half of it. It'd be nice to be able to collect the other half, and since it's part of the GTAC, it's up to the legislatures how they want to handle that, though. Okay. We're doing the best we can under the circumstances we're going with.
Thank you. Thank you.
Well, Dr. Beeson, since you bring that up, it might be useful to get an update on the CARES registry. If we could do that either this time, or if you need a while, at least put that on the agenda for the next meeting.
Well, it's information. So can you just, they spoke about it in one of the committees yesterday, and I know that there was a meeting that happened in San Diego. Can you kind of update on what those discussions were?
Sure, so this didn't have much to do with dishes. We met with the folks from the CARES registry, just several individuals, to try to discuss ways of getting Texas as a group onto the CARES registry. And so CARES, their grant funding is running out, and they're looking at different models. One of the models they're looking at is essentially a subscription model, where each individual agency that wants to contribute can sign up as a subscription. That's not really their favorite model. They're not trying to make money off of this, they're trying to cover expenses. And if you're trying to get each agency in the United States to join up individually, it's really going to be a problem for them. So they're pushing a state model where they would like each state to have a coordinator and help the agencies in that state funnel the data up. And that's what we had talked about before. Our motion was to try to get Texas to investigate that. We were looking at some alternative ways. California, for example, did it through some professional associations. We had some informal discussions about RACs doing it, so nothing definitive about an alternative way. We're just kind of looking at some ideas.
Joe, any update?
Sure.
$12 on Dr. Purse's document, I think we can.
And we've emailed back and forth, and we've talked about it in the office, and obviously the issue is the funds.
Sure.
And a full-time FTE. And not that we don't support it, but when we're struggling just to get our day-to-day funding, to go in for another program and another FTE is going to be very difficult. There's no doubt about it. So I don't think we would be against it. It's just, I don't know how we pay for it.
Have to be something legislative, because I think even if one of the RACs or some private entity did it, I mean, the EMS it'd have to be a voluntary submission thing. Unless the 20-something states that do state reporting to CARES, unless something in the next legislative session we got introduced and then got funding to support it from a state level. That'd be pretty much a voluntary thing, and then I think we get into the fragmentation that the CARES group is worried about not getting all of the data to make a true analysis statistically. And
I don't think there's any doubt that the best data would come from mandatory reporting.
For sure.
But I don't think that's going to happen, at least anytime soon. Hopefully somewhere where unicorns live.
well, from our standpoint, EMS-wise, it is mandatory, because we must submit our data to.
Yes.
And as we move into 3.4 here in a few years, and it even becomes more mandatory because the CARES data set is in a 3.4 compliant NEMSIS, which will then mandatorily be reported to the state.
Yeah.
Just an update for that, the 3.4, it will be in year 2017.
17.
So a year from now, we will be 3.4 compliant.
Good, thank you. Good to know.
So while the state might not mandate participation in CARES, for example, without some sort of state coordination, the agencies that want to participate are stymied.
Right.
I've been trying to get somebody to take my money, and they're just not in a situation to do that. So that's what I'm trying to find out a way to do, is to facilitate the agencies that want to report to CARES, to find out a way to do that.
And when we go to 3.4, EMS basically is done, because then we just got to do an agreement between us and CARES to move that data over, because we'll have the elements. The issue is
It's
still on the
hospital.
hospital side.
The three subject for hospital outcome data has to be submitted, or all those files aren't
Fully agree.
closed.
Fully agree.
And that's really the issue is CARES, I think there's benefit in a national cardiac arrest registry. I think the issue, though, is that CARES is a way to facilitate getting those elements from the hospitals.
Yeah.
So-
And I came from Pennsylvania, we're one of the pilot states, and it was great.
Yeah.
But when Medtronic was involved with it, they supported the staff and the equipment, or the software and all that kind of stuff. So it was easy to get. They had full-time people just doing that. And now that they're out of it, it has to stand on its own.
So, Joe, I wouldn't ask for your answer right now, but my consideration would be perhaps socialization and feedback again on whether this is something we think we really need to legislate for funding, or is this something that we need to put on the commissioner's radar as a priority for funding processes and things.
I think perhaps just some direction in which way to go.
Yes.
we'll take under advisement. As you know, we do not push legislation from this seat or from our offices. But,
Understand.
we could talk offline.
Thanks. Any other comments, public comments, any? Thank you guys for your reports. Oh, yeah, we completely understand. We know who you work for.
So one announcement, if we're still under announcements.
Announcements.
House Resolution Bill 4365, Emergency Air Access to Emergency Medications Act, federal legislation that's currently or recently been introduced. We would certainly ask you all to become familiar with that legislation. It's near and dear to your hearts as a EMS stakeholder, and regarding the ability to continue the administration of controlled substances without a written prescription, and also changing the DEA registration process. As a brief summary, contact your legislators quickly and ask for their support. There's wonderful toolkits and legislative support through the American College of Emergency Physicians, the National Association of EMS Physicians, National Association of EMTs, and other organizations out there to try and make it easy for you. But please become familiar with that and support that legislative actively with your federal legislators, please.
And, and stop calling the DEA on it, because it has to become law before they can even consider what they're going to do with it. And I know they're getting inundated with questions about it, and they received their first copy of the proposed legislation from me.
Not quite true.
Well, that's what they
Formally,
said.
formally perhaps.
Local DEA or?
No, not the one in Washington.
Yeah, okay. Okay, good, it's very good. It's exciting, Bill, this is the first time ever that physicians, medics, firefighter, I mean, everybody's agreed on something. I mean, this is astounding, so.
So far, the backs have yet to get a needle in them.
Yeah, everybody agrees, it's a good thing. All right, thank you very much. If there's no other issues, we'll adjourn.
You as well, sir.